All right, I'll gavel in this work session of the Anchorage Assembly. We've duly noticed. Why don't we, as we do in work sessions, though it's a little weird for meetings, just announce your presence. Ms. Broski.
Lily Strauss here.
Well, Forrest Dunbar.
Austin from Medical.
Susanna Branch. Lisa Slusner.
Eric Croft.
Felix Rivera.
Dick Trenny.
Pete Peterson. Christopher Constant. Fred Dyson.
We have a quorum, and we have actually all 10 members present. So there have been some questions about the procedure. So for the assembly members and for the applicants here, thank you all for applying, for being willing to participate and put yourself out there. We all know what that's like and appreciate your willingness to do it. I spent some time with lawyers today, always unpleasant, and was looking for, almost always unpleasant, let's just say that. There are some exceptions. Rules are somewhat the rules that apply to people applying for a job. So there are prohibited things you can't ask, and I'll try and get in the way if you do. But basically, this is up to the discretion of the assembly, so you can ask anything non-prohibited that is relevant. We got word, and the clerk is printing for me an email we got from Ms. Snelling saying that she had withdrawn. Alyssa Snelling, thank you. It's with regret that I need to pull my name out of the interim seat run. And so we're getting her to sign on that, but we believe it to be the case, and she's not here today. We have Blake Merrifield will be on phone. It's Mr. right? Merrifield on the phone. So he'll call in if he wants to. Otherwise, we have all the applicants here. I also discussed whether when we do this process, and it's a little ahead of ourselves, so it's the voting process, but whether we eliminate people who didn't receive votes or whether we just always have an open ballot. On the advice of council, it'll be voting just open ballot. Abraham Lincoln didn't get nominated until the third ballot, so you might as well keep it open. You never know what quite will happen. Though he was second in the first, so it wouldn't have probably eliminated him. Any other questions that assembly members had? Is that Mr. Merrifield?
Mr. Merrifield?
Yes. Mr. Croft.
Yeah.
So this might also wait until the meeting, the actual special meeting, but can someone be appointed with a plurality, or do you actually need a majority?
It says by a majority vote, and as that is defined, well, either way, with 11 members it's a 6, and with 10 members it's still 6. So we are going to proceed until we get 6 votes for somebody.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So we got Mr. Merrifield, yes?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. We were just starting. You haven't missed much. And we'll allow everybody to do 3 minutes. You'll get to, if you haven't seen it, Mr. Starr's familiar with it. Some of you may also be familiar with it, but 3 minutes on the timer to introduce yourself, say whatever you think we need to hear. Then there'll be time for questions from us, not you asking each other questions. This is not a presidential debate, but us doing. You can ask everybody, or you can, if you want to, ask an individual person something relevant to something they've said or done. If anyone here really feels like they want to answer a question just posed to somebody, they can let me know. But it seems to me you can ask everybody, you can ask a particular person, but I don't want to get in the way of somebody else's right to answer that if they really feel like they have something to say. Any questions from the applicants? Good, then we'll start. And all of you, if you're candidates, have a 3-minute opening statement just memorized generally. Or if you don't, this can be a good practice. But do you mind if we start with you, Mr. Scheiss?
Yes.
Scheiss.
I'm sorry, I missed. Do I stand? I just read
you can just press that button and talk into the microphone.
Okay. My name is Oliver Cheese. I live in Eagle River up here in Alaska within the district. I spent 15 years in the Marines. I was born and raised in Seattle. I ran off going to the Marines. Combat veteran, spent time as an instructor at the Officer Candidate School in Quantico, spent time as a drill instructor, and spent about 6 or 7 years doing acquisition and logistics management for radar and artillery systems deployed worldwide. Recently, I did a Senate run. I was a candidate for Senate CG. It was an incredibly wonderful, positive experience for me. It was great. Knocked over 4,000 doors, made over 5,000 phone calls, spoke to leaders within the community, within the municipality, and at the state level also. And I got that bug for community service. My only desire is to represent my district, and is to be accessible to those within my district to come to me with their concerns so that I can be their voice as part of the assembly. And with that, I am seeking appointment for the assembly, and if appointed, I would not be running for this seat. So I would agree to that. And with that, I'll pass it along. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Let me just clear it there.
Mr. Cross,
Yeah.
we ask candidates to pull the mic to, those mics aren't good enough to, so when you speak.
Speak right into the mic. Yeah, almost uncomfortably so. And I was going to ask at the beginning, but if you want to, you can address whether you intend to run. I don't know how big of the criteria that'll be for people, but I am interested. Ms. Wimhoff.
It's Wimhoff.
I'm just going to mispronounce everybody's
okay.
name to be consistent.
No problem. Well, my name is Gretchen Wimhoff, and I've lived in Chugiak River since 1995. I came to Alaska in 1965, went through the school system, and graduated from Diamond High School. I'm so old that the school is not the same school as it was anymore. And they made a new one. In 1988, I moved out to teach at Chugiak High School. I taught there for 21 years. And in 1997, I started teaching University of Alaska classes out at the Eagle River campus. So I actually became part of the community. I taught people's children. I met them. I taught the kids again when they came through college. And so I became very active in the educational front. I also, of course, did other things. I worked with the Girl Scouts, was a service unit manager out there, and did yearbook and newspaper publishing with the kids. When I retired, and I retired mostly so I could spend more time in the community. When you're a teacher, your time is really limited in so many ways. So I really wanted to do that, and I did run for office twice, 2014 and 16 for House District 12, which takes in Chugiak and part of Birchwood, and of course Eklutna. And then, of course, I ran for Assembly, and I blinked, and Mr. Dyson slipped by. Still not sure how that happened, but it's politics. So I feel that my involvement, I'm in the community council, I've gone to all the community council meetings, and I've learned about the issues, and I've made great relationships. And I think that's really what's important about getting out involved in your community, is when you make relationships, you make resources, and you find ways to help people in ways that maybe this person needs this, that person needs that, when you work together. So I've been to community councils. I'm currently the vice chair of the Birchwood Community Council. I'm the alternate to the Chugiak River Railroad Service Board, and I'm also the chair of the Public Transit Advisory Board, because public transportation is very important to me, and Eagle River has almost lost all of it. And my concept was, if I can't beat them, join them. And so I'm working hard to make a difference for Chugiak River. I received 32% of the vote when I ran for Assembly. I think that's significant. I do believe that I can be very representative of Chugiak. I think my character is that people would consider me to be honest, and that I would try very hard. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Stir? Star.
Sure. My name is Bill Starr, and I've been in Chugiak River for 29 years. Started at the community council level, served as president of Eagle River Valley Community Council for 2 times, and then moved on to the Planning and Zoning Commission appointed by Mayor Begich at the moment, and then I ran for the Assembly seat after being appointed. I served 1 year as an appointed, so I was elected 4 times in Cheviot Eagle River for running campaigns 4 different times. On the personal side, I own a business in Cheviot. I run an aviation business that's based at Birchwood. Also run a development company. I've had a development company for 20 years, building commercial buildings. I have a couple of them in going now. That's a tough job that you guys have sitting up there. Partly the idea that you work in your district is certainly helpful. How you reach out and perhaps represent all the issues important to the city is also challenging by all events. The relationship building, I did it, and I still feel comfortable that I have that working relationship in amongst the community. The hot button issues, there is a lot of work that has to be done. I like that. I strive to do that work without the fanfare that goes into self-promoting. You just have to get out there and dig your heels in. I work with some of you folks as that. I also understand the committee structure changes from administration to administration or leadership in the assembly, but served as budget and finance chair for 5 years. So I see some of the things that will become the issues of importance in the next 3 months or so, and feel qualified to step in to some of those challenges and help you represent our area as well as the entire city. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I skipped over, and I apologize. Mr. Merrifield, are you ready to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. My name is Blake Merrifield. I'm born and raised in Fairbanks. My wife and daughter, we've all been down in the South Central region here for about 10 years now, 5 of them in the Cheviot Eagle River area. My wife is a high school teacher at Cheviot. My 8-year-old daughter attends Cheviot Elementary. I'm a previous heavy equipment operator. I spent several years on the slope, also working road projects around the state. I currently work for a company that rents out heavy equipment. About 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to get more involved in my community, so I joined the Cheviot Community Council, and that was about 2 years ago, I said, and a few months after that, opening came for the vice presidency, so I applied for that, and was able to get that position. And also, I was able to get an alternate position on the Subversive board, and the main reason I wanted to get on that was because I saw a lot of areas around Peters Creek area where kids were not able to get to because of lack of pathways or bike paths. So I wanted to work on that and give the kids a little more safer access to public parks. And I'm happy to say it looks like some of those pathways can be going forward. The reason I wanted to try and attain this position temporarily, I don't plan on running for election in April. But as a member of community council, we always have a lot of questions about how the assembly works, and just kind of your process. And even though we're all in the same community, I'm not quite sure how the 2 different organizations are working. But it seems to be a really good chance to better understand, perhaps get a little insight in how the assembly works and how we can use some of those insights to perform better at the community council level. One thing we've always had residents come in with concerns about is public notices on development. And, a 4-month position, maybe that's something that could be addressed and addressed a little much more thoroughly in 4 months. But anyway, those are some of the reasons I was hoping to fill this position. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Ms. Williams.
Mr. Sheese and Mr. Merrifield both said that they don't plan to run in April, but I don't think, unless I just missed it, that you, Mr. Starr, or Ms. Wemhoff said. So I think it'd be helpful for me if people who go along could just mention that as part of their intro, if you don't mind.
If I'm appointed, I will not run.
I haven't decided yet.
Thank you. Any other questions before we proceed from assembly members? Then Mr. Miller, that's easy. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Miller. I spent about 13 years in the military. Getting out of the military, I decided to stay in Alaska, and I moved to Chudiak, Eagle River in the early 90s. We graduated 2 kids from Chudiak High School. We currently have one enrolled in Eagle River. Over the past 25 years, I've had the opportunity to present hundreds of communications projects to community councils, assemblies, and planning and zoning meetings statewide. And over that time, my career has progressed where I don't do so much of the presenting myself, but my team does. But what I learned during that process is I really enjoyed it. And I really liked learning more about those communities, the other issues they had, and talking to people and trying to help where I could. The community has been really good to me, Anchorage and Chudiak. And I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I'm ready to get back to the community and make a difference. I haven't decided if I would run in the future, but I can tell you I'm very interested in it. And as a matter of fact, my wife and I have been talking about it for about the last year. And you guys will see me here quite often from time to time in the assembly chambers for the last year or two. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Earnhardt.
Through the chair, good afternoon. I submitted a resume, so I'm just going to try not to repeat that. But I've lived in Anchorage since 1974. I know my father brought me to borough assembly meetings out there on Tudor. I can't say if it was 74 or 75, but it was a constant. I put my name in because I think Eagle River, Chudiak, Jay Bear, Birchwood, Highland needs effective representation immediately, and I am ready to represent this large and somewhat diverse district. I plan on working with the Assembly to make the right decisions both for my constituents. And I think the first order of business is to get with Brad and find out what he feels the priorities are, but then with the community council officers and other individuals in the community. But work for win-win situations for everybody. And I can be a very good advocate for my clients, and I think people know me in the community for that. But part of that is learning how to compromise and work with others so that we get the best resolution. As I said, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I have experience both as an attorney for the city, working very closely with the Assembly and all the departments. I also was a board member and, in fact, a board chair for land use boards. I was second to Mr. Starr back in 2006 when we had to have, I think, 5 ballots to decide who was appointed for that position. Worked very closely with this body numerous times. And right now, part of my practice is advising similar bodies in other communities on a regular basis. In fact, I'm the city attorney for Seward once a month. I have to sit the whole night and advise on numerous issues. And I think that's very important because I'm not only familiar with land use, but there's many things that come before the Assembly. We have enterprise funds, we have bonding issues, we have the Open Meetings Act, all kinds of issues that make it very complex. Robert's Rules of Order. Someone needs to be able to hit the ground running. It's only 4 months, and that's not very long to learn what's going on and to effectively represent the people. There's a lot more I could say. I will say I do not plan at all on running for this position. Maybe in 2.5 years when Michael graduates from Chudiak. But right now I have to be a father and husband at times. I have duties to my law practice and my law partners, and duties to the constituents. I can run myself into the ground for 4 months, and that's probably what it would be. And I look forward to doing that. It's a little bit of a trial and also learn about the position, but at the same time, I do not plan on running.
Thank you, Mr. Earnhardt. Sorry about the attorney clerk earlier.
We deserve it.
Okay, yeah, you have to do. Mr. Cruikshank.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I am Matt Cruikshank, and I am a lifelong resident of Chudiak Eagle River. I was raised in Birchwood and have every intent of being buried in the yet-to-come Chubiak Eagle River Cemetery, pending approval from Assembly, of course. Currently, I hold 2 positions on the Birchwood Community Council. I am the Publicity Secretary and the Federation of Community Councils representative. I'm an appointee of the Chubiak Eagle River for AMATS, the Citizens Advisory Council. I also own several properties in Eagle River and Chubiak. I am currently employed with the State of Alaska Division of Facility Services and am stationed at the Nesbitt Courthouse, ensuring smooth operation of the facility's critical systems. As a public employee, I have chosen to take an active role with my bargaining unit as a shop steward, auditor, and currently as an elected member of the executive board, serving as the recording secretary. I realize the importance of positive relationships with our legislators and have worked to foster these connections through individual relationships at home and traveling to our capital. I believe I would be the best fit for this interim position for several reasons. I have positive understanding of key issues affecting my community through active service and involvement. I will work hard to effectively engage the community in the decision-making process. I represent the perspective of a lifelong community member, and I believe the voters of District 2 should ultimately decide who should fill this position, which is why I will not be running in April. This will provide a clean playing field for the voters and avoid the advantage of an incumbent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Miss Hayden? Hayden.
Thank you, and so far I'm the new kid on the block. I don't have very much community council experience. I am a physical therapist. I've been here in Alaska since 2002, and I've been working as an entrepreneur, sole proprietor that whole time. And I work in kind of the core downtown of Eagle River, and I've seen tremendous changes since 2002. Some changes for the better, a lot of changes for the worse. So I'm kind of tired of sitting around and complaining, and thought, hey, here's an opportunity to at least apply and try. So running in April, I'm getting my feet wet, so I can't really say yes or no what my intention would be in April, but I'm learning, so that's why I applied and why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see, but it's Mr. Williams, yeah?
Yeah, that's the easy one.
Yeah, I can get that one right.
Good job. My name's R. Scott Williams. I became a member of the district in 78, non-voting at that time. I've lived in Thunderbird Falls. My dad came out with the military and the base, obviously, and Eagle River. Homeowner since 2000. I went to school in North Carolina and joined the Marine Corps. I was in the infantry for a few years and decided I didn't like living in holes, so I learned to fly, and they put me in a really expensive piece of metal for a while. My job now is I'm the NORAD evaluator for Alaska, so I think that is a skill that would serve well here to listen, observe, assess, and act. I think in any situation where you're unfamiliar with the processes, that's usually going to get you through to the end of the day. I know that the morning of 9/11, I was writing a air tasking order, which is a piece of paper that tells people where they're going to fly. And an hour later, I was on the ops floor talking to people at the Pentagon about whether or not we're going to shoot down airplanes with Americans on them. So I think I've demonstrated the ability to react and plan and get good information and process it. And that's basically all I have. I don't know if I'm going to run in April at the point or not. It's in the future, and there could be a lot of variables that need to be processed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gibbons?
Yes. Yes, my name is Sharon Gibbons, and I was born and raised here in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm a graduate from Bartlett High School, and I have a criminal justice degree from here in Anchorage. I am the vice chair at the Eagle River Community Council. I'm a volunteer at Chuyak High School, a delegate for the Federation of Community Council, a delegate for the United Nations, a committee for the Commission of the Status of Women. I ran for Assembly in, I believe it was 2014, quite a few years ago, and I had the honor and privilege of running against Bill Starr, who I just think is an amazing person in himself. But I got 41% of the vote, and as far as running in the future, it would be a tremendous opportunity. It is a huge undertaking and something that I would definitely have to consider as I've run before, but it would be a tremendous opportunity. And I'm a student pursuing more education because knowledge is power. And I think that's pretty much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. And finally, Mr. Harnett.
Yes. My name is Eugene Harnett. I've lived in Eagle River since '87, and I've been involved with the liaison to the Federation of Community Council, the Eagle River Community Council back then. And I think I remember Fred's first campaign back then. I was helping him on it, I think, at that point. So I've been involved in the local community with a lot of different forums, teacher forums, parent conferences, and things like this. I raised 5 sons. They're born and raised here in Alaska. We all grew up in Eagle River. We went to all the high schools. I was at 2. A lot of the elementary schools there, middle schools. And so I've been involved in that way. I really love this community of Eagle River. It means a lot to me, raising my children there. I'm a businessman. I've had a flower business, and I've also been a web developer and did online marketing as well. But currently, I'm the executive director for the Fraternal Order of the Alaska State Troopers. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits over the years and made a lot of relationships. I think, too, we did a lot of minister forums. I met probably every minister in Anchorage at one point or other. A lot of the legislators. This is 20 or 30 years ago. And then it was about 10 years ago that I decided to get into business. I got my business administration degree and have been in business the last 10 years for myself, actually all my life. And my children are grown, and that the community continues. So I know that the faces have changed in the leadership, but the values in our community don't. And yet that's why I'm running, because I see a lot of shifting, a lot of different things going on. My taxes, I remember $800 a year taxes on our house, and now it's over $6,000. So I know things have changed a lot in the last 30 years. For me, family is everything, and I think we need to protect our family values. In our community of Eagle River especially, we have a very strong sense of that with the soccer clubs and the hockey clubs, and Boy Scouts, and those types of things that I've been involved in over the years. So that's why I'm running, I haven't decided to run. If I do get appointed, you like me so much, maybe you can say run, but I'm really not planning to do that. I just want to say we have a great group of people here. I hope you can pick someone who really represents the values of Eagle River.
Thank you, sir. We're not using the computers to vote, but we are using, I see people have come up on requesting to speak. So, Mr. Constant.
Thank you. This might be the most important question of the day. Mr. Williams, you said you were with NORAD. Does that mean you're beginning to track Santa? He's not coming this year,
This isn't televised. Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We have a really deep pool to choose from. Mr. Harnett, excuse me, you said it was important to you to protect family values. Could you talk about what you mean by that and how you feel that that relates to your role in the assembly?
In the family, we learn a lot of things. We learn how to cooperate. We learn our responsibilities in the household. We learn to be honest and trust each other. And those are the kind of values that really mean a lot to me. And I think as a community, Anchorage and Eagle River, we have a lot of that. And yet it sometimes gets strained because it's a little bit difficult. But I think that's why I like assembly, because this is a nonpartisan seat, and we can actually work together with those values where we trust each other, we cooperate together, we learn those things. That's what
Mr. Trainee.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've got 3 questions for each of these people. If they'd answer them for me, I'd appreciate it. Title 21 has a specific section that deals with Eagle River. Have you looked at it? Do you understand it? Do you know why we have it? Second question is, the water line that goes to Powder Ridge. I want to know whether you support that or not. Because when we take a look at Anchorage and the Bully area, we're taxed on land. But we can put 1,000 homes into Powder Ridge if they got enough water supply. I want your position on that. And the third one is, tell me how you feel about sending the alcohol tax to the voters. Because quite frankly, whoever we appoint today at 4 o'clock is going to vote on the issue tonight. So I want to know how you're going to vote on it. You're going to send the voters or not? That's all, Mr. Chairman.
That's all.
Point of order.
Give us a second before you answer that. Yeah, Mr.
I just would suggest that we have yet to debate the alcohol tax, and so any position that anyone would deliver would be based on their opinion today before they hear from the body.
Everybody calm down and let's talk about this in order. I had the prior list, but who wants to address that issue? Did you, Mr. Dunbar?
I'm sorry, I was raging towards what was relevant here. I think it was about this. I don't think it's appropriate for us to ask that particular question. I know why you did Mr. Training, but given that in 4 hours we're going to be voting on the alcohol tax, I think that is one thing that perhaps we should elide from this particular discussion.
More comments on that issue? Did you, Mr. Rivera?
If I may. So I wasn't going to ask a particular question about how all of these candidates are going to vote. But I was going to go more along the lines of the theoretical of the, are you prepared to take action? Because the folks here are going to have to be ready to jump into this seat and immediately today start voting on something. So I was going to ask more of that theoretical.
More on that, Mr. Trainee, in response?
I think this question is germane because right now we're asking people to take the seat and vote on this issue. Send this to the voters. I think it's quite appropriate for them to be able to step into the deep end of the pool and give me an answer on that. I'm not asking how they're going to vote on the issue. I just want to know, are they willing to send it to the voters, sir?
Oh, I thought you were asking at the polls. I don't think I have the authority to limit any individual members what they're going to ask. I think it's thank you, Mr. Trainee. He confirms that he doesn't think I have either. I don't think it's a very good idea, but you each were individually elected, and the applicants can feel free to say, I'm going to think about it, I don't have enough information, or I'm not going to answer that if you want. But Mr. Trainee, do you want to just briefly repeat your 3 questions?
First one is Title 21. We have a section carved out there, thanks to Debbie Osianda and others who served in that area, related to Eagle River. I want to make sure you understand how important that is in the Chugach area. I used to live out there, so I've got a warm feeling for Chugach River. In fact, I voted to make us our own borough years ago.
You just summarize the questions.
Second question relates to the water line going into Powder Ridge. If we're getting development in Eagle River, Anchorage, I know some people separate it, but it's still part of Anchorage. I want to know what your position is on that. And the third one is, are you ready to vote on the alcohol tax today, whether to send the voters or not?
Title 21, Powder Ridge, and the alcohol tax. We'll just break it up. We'll start on this end, sir. Mr. Ryan.
Yes, Title 21, I'm familiar with it. I haven't read it completely. As far as the hike to Powder Ridge, I would support that. The alcohol tax, I haven't seen that actual ordinance yet. I saw the one about the extended hours, which I'd vote against. But I don't know exactly on the alcohol tax. I probably don't. Generally, I would not vote for the
Ms. Gibbons.
In regard to Title 21, as important as it is, I would feel more comfortable having not read it in its entirety. I would feel more comfortable reading it a little more to answer that question or speak to it. In regard to Powder Ridge, the water line, I'm curious what constituents would feel is necessary or would be needed in Powder Ridge. I'm thinking if there is a need for it, that they would like to be a part of that conversation, and then I would feel more comfortable going. And the alcohol tax, I'd definitely like to get more information in that regard. We did talk about it quite a bit extensively at the Eagle River Community Council meeting, and we are still actually in deliberations in regard to what constituents in the residents feel about having new tax laws in the Eagle River area. Some of the new pubs that are up and coming are pretty close to residential areas, so that is another discussion that I'd love to get more information regarding before making a distinct decision.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
As far as Title 21, I need to do some research on that to form an educated opinion. The second one, I believe that's ICA, is that what you're talking about, the infrastructure coordination agreement with the mayor for pumping more water into Eagle River so we can have more houses?
So it's bringing more water into Olive Acres, includes Eagle River Chugach. We need another line. It's a big water line coming in. It's a transmission line.
Yeah, that's what I understood. I think that is a purview of government to do infrastructure items like that. I would definitely support that. And as far as the alcohol tax, I think that is the purview of the voters. I would send that to the voters.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
From what I understand, Title 21 allows the Chugach, Eagle River, Peters Creek area to have a little more autonomy, a little more choice. I'm not totally familiar with that, but I'm very much in support of having more autonomy for the Eagle River, Chugach area, and the Powder Ridge water issue. I would need to learn more about that as well as the alcohol tax. Thank you.
Mr. Crucian.
So as far as Title 21 goes, it's Eagle River and Chugach's holy grail. That gets the separation from Anchorage to Chugach Eagle River of having our own zone. We are not Anchorage. We are our own unique area, and we have outlined this. Members of this body, Fred Dyson in particular, helped form Title 21 Chugach Eagle River and the next step of the comprehensive plan of Chugach Eagle River. Now when we go to the water district that's being formed in the part of Birchwood, I would have to go back to what does the comprehensive plan say of our district? The comprehensive plan of Birchwood says we will have no public water or sewer on our district. So you ask me how I feel about that, I am against it in everything. If we created a comprehensive guide as a roadmap of the development of the area, when we turn around and go against that, what is the point of the comprehensive plan? I understand we are trying to create we have a housing shortage, which might have been actually an issue before we had this dip in our economy. But I don't think the answer is trampling all over our own values, and that's what we're doing with the comprehensive plan. As far as the alcohol tax goes, I believe I'm not fully educated on the issue, but I would say we have a tax cap in place, and if the alcohol tax would fall under the tax cap, I would support it. Thank you.
Mr. Earnhardt.
In regard to Title 21, I don't think any of us fully know all of the provisions, but I was there in 2006 to 2009 when the revisions for Anchorage started, and it started out in Eagle River. And I think it is important that Eagle River does have some provisions that are different. In what I call the Old Town Eagle River Valley, where I live, Birchwood, Chugach, we have folks that build their own houses, they're on wells, they have large lots, and there's going to have to be adaptations over time. But it's very important for different zoning. Downtown Eagle River is also its own unique district. It's one of those it's an actual town center as opposed to the other ones we proposed around Anchorage that haven't fully developed. At the same time, Eagle River is developing. Powder Ridge and near downtown and near the river and Briggs Bridge are becoming Anchorage suburban, and they meet the same set of rules so that we know what's going on, that we have consistency and we have consistent enforcement. As to Powder Ridge and the water line, I think it is important that we expand city services in Eagle River, but we do have to respect the existing homeowners and their interests. If we run a line through a neighborhood, I don't think we should force anyone to either hook up to it or to pay for it until they do hook up to it. If they have their own well that they have paid for, that they're using, they should be able to continue to do that, and eventually when that well breaks down, they'll want to join and be on the water line. Comprehensive plans are very important. I think that's always a starting point, but comprehensive plans are done every 10 years with broad ideas and are meant to be amended, to be changed as situations develop. Lastly, on the alcohol tax, I have an open mind at this point, and in most issues I have an open mind until I vote. The default is voters should always look at taxes. However, we're in very complex times right now. I would like to hear the other side of that.
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller, I may answer these out of order just because. You know, the alcohol tax I'm very familiar with. I'm very familiar with why it was proposed, and you know, I think it's needed, and I would support sending it out to voters. Title 21, you know, I talked a little bit about the projects that I proposed in the past. I could not cite Title 21 to you, but I definitely know Chugiak Eagle River have different rules. I completed several projects out there. And what was the last question? I apologize.
Last question related to Powder Ridge.
Powder Ridge, you know, I think that I do support that water line, but I also believe that there is a comprehensive plan in place, and we have to work with the local residents to educate them and get them on board with those changes. The comprehensive plan is what it is. It was developed years ago, and it does have to change time to time. And I would hope that the community is looking back and amending that as the community changes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Starr.
I know Title 21 very well. I was on the body primarily when it was from the major rewrite all the way through. One of the things that I did was, in conjunction with Ms. Hosiander, I wrote Chapter 10 inside of that with an interest to preserve the unique values of that and describe differently in our land use codes how best to manage some of the challenges that we see. Girdwood also has its own chapter that references some of the unique characteristics on how it would be. Primarily, it reflects that we have a solid service board district. We've heard some of the folks that are members of that. The road board service area, the Parks and Rec service board are good examples of that. Protected inside Chapter 10, that they get a voice as land use changes are proposed in that through an advisory committee, some of that. There's still work to be done, but I think it served its purpose in being well positioned. For example, where we may need to look at looking at where does the BSA boundaries, building safety area boundaries, with revelations on the earthquake in particular, where we've seen building codes and some of that stuff. I think we're well positioned inside Chapter 10 to sort of address and debate those issues and change our land use codes as well. Signage and lighting are still in the queue and have been addressed. Some of the road standards got addressed in Chapter 10 adequately and appropriately. So that question, yeah, I know it well, and it's very important. All of that is Title 21 and Title 23 are both fundamental as we grow our communities. The water line issue, and I said it at the work session, I want to finish that. And so probably not the motivation to get back on the body is we're very close. The methane gas settlement outlined 5 different aspects that needed to get done. I can go through them if you like, but it was change the tariffs. It was move the process forward, as well as come up with the ICAs, balloting the neighborhood, stressful as it may be. All of those issues need to be handled. So when I said it at the work session, and I say it now, I kind of want to finish that. It's been almost 6 years in transition. We're very close. The fact that AWWU can't deliver water volume to a growing community that's fully platted, then through planning and zoning is a huge issue, but we also have trouble refilling our water tanks, our water pressure issues, and some of those growth issues in North Eagle River. The alcohol tax, I watched it. I'm glad for punishment and watching what you guys do up there. Congratulations, Mr. Croft. I didn't stay till midnight, but I see the seats have changed. I'm pretty cognizant with that. Debated the issue once or twice before, in fact, and I feel comfortable bringing it to the voters for those kind of questions. It would be, I would want to see the amendments that you folks have, if that's meant to be, but that's a valid point in your debate and your discussions of your amendments to make it better law. Thank you.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Just a quick point of inquiry.
On the sure.
Thank you, Mr. Starfield. Would you be able to vote on items regarding the water line?
It depends what the questions are. I feel in my building community, I'm conflicted out oftentimes. I don't, for example, do my own permitting at the planning center for that. So I think it's a matter of where the body judges a conflict of interest per se. But in terms of representing Eklutna, you guys do too from that perspective. So in terms of being able to be unbiased in my decision making and not influenced by that relationship, you can't really go anywhere and get Eagle River even in Anchorage without bumping into the Eklutna group. So to be conflicted out, it would be hard to say. I don't know what question would be in front of the assembly. You had one last night where there was some sort of work service order that came in front of them. I don't have any say yes or no on the appropriation of funds. And so to answer your question, I don't know what question would be in front of the assembly as it relates to the water line issue. I'd have to just judge it on each one. Thank you.
Mr. Merrifield, we haven't forgotten about you. Did you hear those 3 questions?
I think I believe exactly what was he asking for on Title 21. I was aware that there is one and that it's important to Eagle River. Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah, familiarity with it and importance to Eagle River, I think.
Yeah, I am of course aware of it. I think all community council members out there come across Title 21 and the different codes for Eagle River Chudiak. Specifically, we deal with the zoning issues almost on a monthly basis. Now, can I recite the whole entire Title 21 to verbatim? I couldn't. That's why we keep a copy on file so we can look through it and make sure it's accurate. As far as Carter Ridge goes, several months ago, I was at a Berkshire Community Council meeting where an AWWU rep answered questions from the residents, and to be honest, I thought he answered them adequately or more than adequately at times, but by the end of the meeting, he answered questions for a long time. There was obviously still a lot of concern from those folks. I wouldn't push anything forward right now until those residents' concerns are addressed adequately. Because I think that also goes along how that area gets developed also relates possibly to how the Carroll Creek area gets developed. If these 2 areas get developed to the maximum capacity, we're going to be dealing with a lot more issues with the increased population. And as far as the alcohol tax goes, well, if you ask me how would I vote on it tonight, well, I would vote no on it tonight because I don't know enough about it to instill a tax on residents without knowing enough about it.
Thank you, Mr. Merrifield. Ms. Wimhoff.
Well, you picked 3 of my favorite topics.
Mm-hmm.
So actually Title 21 is the land use for the municipality. Section 10 is the comprehensive plan that's in there, part of the comprehensive plan. And the neat thing about being in Birchwood is you get to be around W.O. Sanford. And our Birchwood Community Council has several people that are constantly dealing with park issues because we're right next to, we have parks right next to us, we have the base next to us, we have the police shooting range, all sorts of things touch Birchwood. And so we end up in a lot of debates and discussions about issues of land use. And it walks right into the water issue. I was chair of the task force that the Birchwood Community Council put together to address the water issues and to bring as much information as we could to our members of the community council. And the thing that bothered most people is that it got as far as our wastewater utility company with them not really knowing there was a comprehensive plan until they were alerted to it because of this process. And that was from their words. And I think that that's something that we have to really think about, that if something is so important to our planning and zoning, then all of our utilities that deal with it should be aware of it. So as far as what we did, I came here, we spoke at this meeting. We were able to work with AWU, and you were able to approve some legislation that made it a bit easier on the Birchwood residents. The Birchwood residents are not all happy. AWU has still not yet planned the route. They've been waiting on negotiations between the other groups. We talk to them monthly to check in with them. So they're still waiting to plan the exact route, and then they will take these suggested routes to the Birchwood Community Council, and they will get some input from it. So the finality of where it's going to go, the finality of a vote from the residents has not happened yet. And of course, we do know that the residents of Birchwood will be undervoted. Now, as far as Powder Ridge and producing more housing there, of course, in fact, even the people in Birchwood had no issue with that at all. Their issue was the water line going right through their neighborhood. And this water line, it's going to be twofold. One, you cannot support a neighborhood of that size, 1,500 plus homes without that. But the other thing is a route that the water could come through, go about, I can't remember what they call it, but if something happened to the main route, we have another route that can kind of save the way to get water to Anchorage. So I'm familiar with that. I do feel comfortable, if I were appointed today, I do feel comfortable voting on the alcohol tax. I've been paying attention to it. I spent a lot of time watching television last night as well. So thank you. I hope I got it all in there.
I think you did just under the wire. Mr. Shea.
With regards to Title 21, I know it had to do with land use, but I did not have I feel like I would be copying on my neighbor's answers if I started rattling off what I heard earlier today. The Powder Ridge, I heard some of the same concerns from the Birchwood Community Council members and the people showing up there. Something that I need to get more spun up on. The alcohol tax, I know that's not coming up very quickly. That's something that I spend a little more time familiarizing myself with. However, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to tell you how I intend to vote on it, because it's at that point then I would be wondering, okay, am I getting appointed because he thinks I'm voting the same way he is, or because he thinks I am an effective representation of my community? And so I'm just not comfortable sharing that with you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving me the indulgence of the time. I appreciate hogging all of it. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank all of you for applying for this position. I am going to have much more of a softball question than Mr. Trainee. So I would like everyone to speak to your readiness to jump into this seat and start the job from day one. Things like going to our committee meetings. We actually had 2 earlier today, a utilities committee meeting and a budget and finance committee meeting before we came here. It's been a busy day. Community council meetings, Mr. Trainee and I have one later today after this. Assembly meetings, etc. The list will go on and on. So I would like everyone to speak to your readiness. And then sort of the not so theoretical to that is the reason I think Mr. Trainee brought up the alcohol tax is everyone who is on this body has an obligation to vote. Unlike the state, you can't just say, I abstain. So what I'm more interested in, not interested in how you plan on voting, but I'm interested in actually in speaking to the readiness. Do you feel like you're ready to vote on that? Have you listened to the work sessions? Have you read up on it? That's what I'm interested in. Thank you.
It always bugs me when we do each end. That way the end people are either first or last. We get a great advantage or a great disadvantage. Can we start with you, Mr. Starr? And we'll go down the line this way and wrap around.
Yes, I'm well equipped to sit up there and run the board, and it sounds arrogant and egotistical and all the things that go with being up there in the position, but I always was the person that did the hard work, lifted the water and carried it through the topics, and so if I left a reputation up there, it was that I jumped in, whether it be the committee's budget and finance chair, enterprise committee, Title 21's committee, however it was needed. I know how to run the board. I have the ethics training, understand the charter, understand the codes, purchasing codes. So it's fascinating, the topics that you deal with, 109 or so, and you need to know how that is. You also know, as Mr. Constance said, where you cross over the appearance of a conflict. Conflicting, as we're active people in the community, you have to know when to pull up short and not tenacious debate, but I also am a good listener. I like to hear what my folks have to say about the community, particularly the community folks and those that I work with from time to time throughout, whether it be assembly members or city hall folks. So in that case, I'm well skilled on this topic. Watched some of that. I wouldn't say I really sat through the work sessions, not in the email chains, because not in that email chain, thank goodness. But I imagine you guys are getting plenty of that. I will say, in all seriousness, something has to be done with the homelessness issue, the homelessness crisis. And as I sat out there for 10 years, it was hard. It was a moving target, and so I feel, just give me some time to debate and confer. But it's more money. Oftentimes, that is the solution. So that's the goal in the end game to earmark that. I think it's a valid discussion to have and let the voters decide.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Miller.
I do believe I'm well equipped to start serving. I do attend a lot of assembly meetings. I do attend a lot of work sessions when I'm available. I get all the emails and I put them on my calendar and I try to show up when I can. But if I was appointed, I would make it a priority and attend. I'm willing to put in the hard work. I can tell you things that are on the table and off the table, and flowers. You never want to try to do anything with our flowers in Anchorage. And, the plastic bag ban, these are all the things that I've learned about over the last 30 days, 40 days, that have been really discussed in the last couple of meetings. And I just wanted to mention those because it does show that, I am here a lot, and I am at several committee meetings, and I would be, if appointed, would attend the committee meetings to do the hard work. I don't know everything, no one does, but I am willing to put the time in when necessary.
Mr. Turner?
I think on my initial remarks, I mostly addressed how I'm ready for this. I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I'm willing to put in the time. I looked over the agenda, although I focused on a couple of interesting issues to me: Eagle River, the expansion of Eagle River Ale House permit, and actually the harassment policy for the assembly. And that's just because professionally that's one of my concerns. I'm not as up on alcohol taxes I would like to be, or I would be if I was an assembly member. However, I'm very familiar with excise taxes, the issues involved, and alcohol tax is something that's come up on a regular basis. And I think I mostly sit and listen some more.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
In reference to, am I ready to serve in the assembly seat? I think that's a great question. Well, I have to look at me and who I am, and I love a challenge more than anything. And any challenge I undergo, I put my full heart and all my energy into it because I want to succeed at what I'm doing. Just as all committees that I've signed up for, they are a lot of times schedule conflicts. But when you sign up for those things, you have to have an open mind and realize that you're expected to be at these items right there. And I fully believe that I would be able to make any work sessions or meetings if it's 3-4 times per week for 2 hours, 12 to 2. Yeah, I understand it's a big responsibility, and I believe I'm up to the challenge. As far as am I ready to vote? Do I have enough information? Am I ready to vote for the gas tax? I would actually probably have to defer that I do need to gather a little bit more information. And as I had said before, if it did fall under the tax cap under our current set of rules, then I think I would approve it. But if this is going above and beyond, and this is a voter referendum I think I would need to gather a little bit more information. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? On the issue of readiness, again, this is a new field for me, but as a physical therapist, for 18 years I've been in PT, and you have to listen to your patients. The better listener you are, they'll end up telling you about 75 to 80% of the problems that you have. So I would think part of your jobs are to listen to constituents and to listen to people. So in that sense, I'm ready. It's a new area for me, but I'm willing to listen and to learn. And I think the other was the alcohol. And from what I understand is that 8 of you have to vote yea or nay, and if it does pass, then it goes to the voters. Is that what I understand? Okay, and that's just what I'm going to clarify.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you. As far as readiness, I think I echo the majority here in that I tend to use my mouth and my ears in their correct proportion. And my day-to-day job is listening, observing, and then assessing what the best thing, course of action to take is. And I think I've already made my alcohol tax stance.
I too feel that I'm ready. I echo what each of my mates here have said, that you will need to listen and to be able to comprehend what is being managed, because it's extremely important. So I think I am ready to do that. And I was at a meeting in Eagle River in regard to the plastic bag. And so for me, it's very important to listen to the constituents, because we're reading that it was successful, but then there are another part of the story where there are people that are not excited about your doing the plastic bag. So I think that's where it comes to who are you listening to, and are you making yourself available? And I'm ready to listen and be available.
Thank you for that softball question compared to Dick Kennedy's. Yes, I thought about it a lot when I came here. These next 4 months, I could focus on that time frame. I know I have a daytime job, and I know some of your meetings are during the day, so I have some flexibility in that, so I can actually get away. And also, my nights, my children are out of the house. I don't have any concerns when I get home at night. So I have a lot of time in the evenings, and I want that time to be useful. So I really like the idea of spending time on something like this. And that's what it takes, especially in the beginning learning. I try to listen to a lot of you, what you have to say, because I need to learn. And getting up there in years, learning keeps us young. So I'm always learning, I'm always young. So I realize that, and I look forward to the opportunity. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm ready. Schedule-wise, I'm free to attend every single community council or every single assembly meeting, as well as all of the community council meetings. In the district, there's a conflict between 2 of the community council meetings, and I would probably alternate on that. Any kind of public service you're not by yourself. I have the full support of my wife and the family, and I'm prepared to do so with the alcohol tax. I believe, that part of the question was, are we prepared to move forward and give a vote on it?
No, yeah, and I'll just repeat. So I'm not interested in how you're going to vote tonight. That's not what I want.
Right.
But what I am interested in goes to the readiness. Are you ready? Have you read up on it? Have you listened to the work sessions?
Right.
Yeah.
I have read up on it. I have not listened to the work sessions. I do feel confident to go forth and vote with confidence. I certainly am looking forward to hearing the additional debates. Thank you.
Actually, that's a good time to compliment the municipality for having meetings available to go back and view. So that's been kind of nice. Am I ready? I believe I am. I believe I'm involved enough in this community. I'm familiar with the community. I believe that I have resources and people that I could go to help me get through things. I'm definitely an avid learner. I've been a teacher all my life. I know the importance of focusing. Of course, I'm probably going to be reading a lot, so I guess it's nice I like to read. And that's one thing. I do feel comfortable making the vote this afternoon. I'm comfortable with that. I feel like I've watched enough and read enough on that, so I don't have a problem with that. As far as my schedule, I work for myself, and I also I basically have 2 days a week that I work, and I'm not sure how you schedule your meetings in the future if you work with each other, because I know many of you have jobs that you have to work around. But even at that point, it is possible for me to be flexible.
Thank you. Mr. Merrifield?
Yes, the question is, am I ready?
I think so, yeah.
Well, if you ignore the fact that I'm 5,000 miles away right now, yes, I'm ready. The job itself seems it's going to be time consuming, it's going to be difficult, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm willing to commit myself to 4 months of this, and I'm not sure about 3. I'm not sure about 3 years. That's why I told you I would not be running for election in April. But I'm more adaptable to change my schedule around as need be. My schedule is flexible. Spend myself fully in the next 4 months. Yes.
Thank you all. And so we're here at the lightning round. I have 4 people in the queue, but I got an email from our municipal council, Mr. Gates, reminding me and asking me to ask. There are some prohibitions in the code about serving if you're on the school board, other elected service area board you can't serve. If you're an employee of the municipality or school district, you can't hold both. An employee of the state can, as long as it's a non-elected position. So just quickly, are there any positions that you'd have to resign in order to take the seat? If I can start with Mr. Cruikshank.
If I did hear that interpretation correct, if you work for the state of Alaska, you would have to resign your position?
No, you can be an employee of the state. You can't be in an elected position at the state.
So no, I would not have to resign any position.
No. I'm a sole proprietor business owner and just community council in Eagle River.
Okay.
As a federal employee, this is the only participation I can have in the vote.
Okay, so not only is it not prohibited, it's almost all you can do.
Yeah, according to the Hatch Act.
Okay.
No, I would not have to resign.
Currently, I'm on the Anchorage Transportation Commission, and I would resign from that.
From that. Mr. Chase.
She's like she's Louise. No, I would not have to resign from anything. There's no conflict.
Yes.
I would have to resign from my position on the Public Transportation Board, and I'm not sure, I'm an alternate versa versa, but it's not a problem if that's something I need to resign, because that's appointed by my community council. I would like to disagree, though. The charter does say that if you are an employee of the Anchorage School District, you can do this. And it's it's on the papers that were given to us. It's determined that the Anchorage School District does not count as a municipal employee.
You're correcting our attorney?
Yes. I am bringing light to an issue that you might want to research.
All right, good. I'll have you look into that. I just read what I was handed. Mr. Merrifield?
I have to resign my position.
Mr. Stock?
No, I have none, but I will point correction. The folks that are on the road boards and some of those Parks and Rec board, they're appropriation bodies, and so they would have to step aside for that period of time as they're appointed. They appropriate money.
Great.
I have no conflicts.
I am on a state board, but it's appointed and not elected.
Not
so
elected.
I would not have to. No conflicts.
Good. Okay, I apologize for jumping the list. Ms. Porosky, I have you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So something concerning youth today is school safety, especially with recently what's been going on in our schools. So how do you address schools? This is to everybody. How do you address school safety, and what do you think needs to be improved upon?
Just moving it down the line, Mr. Williams, not to surprise you, but if you'd like to.
No, that's fine. Actually, I was at the Eagle River earthquake meeting last night and was alarmed when a young lady stepped up and said, I guess they're doing a transit system for getting the two schools that closed, the kids that went to those schools, to the schools that they're going to. And at that location, there's no way to go to the bathroom, so kids are having very traumatic, life-changing moments when they shouldn't have. And also, there's no cover, there's no protection from the elements. So, attacking the item that's the most important in front of us now, definitely. And the superintendent said, consider it done, so I would keep an eye on that, but I would definitely want to, as far as safety for the children, let's take care of their physical safety first.
Hi, Ms. Gibbons. Yeah.
Thank you for asking that question. It's a very good question. I have children that go to Chugiak, and that was part of their concern. So I am a volunteer at Chugiak High School, and that's part of the dialogue that we've been having now is how can we ensure the safety of our children. Unfortunately, when we talk about it, it relates to drugs, so that's something that we have been engaging in, and I think having more parental volunteers at the school helps with safety and helping have more eyes in more places, and it also helps the children because they tend to be able to gravitate if they need someone to talk to an adult. So I'm not sure if that's what you're relating to, the safety, but that's a huge one at Chugiak High School.
Wonderful question. Yes, I think it's important for our children to be safe in their schools. And I raised 5 boys, maybe a little bit different than girls, but at least the understanding of what children go through when they're at school. I think the biggest issue right now for me in regards to safety, it does relate to the drug issue. There's a lot of drugs out there, and I think we need to bring more education into the schools in regards to the effects of drugs, because it's affecting a lot of them almost unintentionally when they get involved. So I think that, as far as that kind of thing, that's really important for me in our community these days, especially with this problem with opioids in Alaska and in Anchorage. Young people are getting involved in things, and we have a new marijuana law that allows even more availability for that for young people. So I think education for our children is really, that's where I learned it when I was in school, not to do drugs and the effects of drugs. I think we need to make sure we're doing that a lot.
Mr. Shees?
That's an incredibly broad question. So depending on what you're talking about, that it takes a different avenue of approach. I think the one universal truth, as I see it, is that the first and last line of defense in the most effective way of managing safety is our teachers. They're where the rubber meets the road, if I can be forgiven for using such an overused metaphor. Ensuring that they have the trust and confidence of the school district, ensuring that they have the support and education that they need in order to recognize flags or warning signs to where they need to go in for further investigation, for lack of a better word. Also, in regards to disasters, ensuring that there are emergency preparedness plans, ensuring that we're compliant with some of the recommendations from FEMA in regards to evacuation plans, or having the words escaping me at the moment, ensuring that you have the appropriate amount of food and water on site, and that you have methods for managing the children in a safe manner until they can be recovered by their parents. Drugs, again, that's teachers. Those are our teachers. A teacher who knows their students will recognize that. A teacher who is well supported to inspire their students to succeed, not only in the classroom but in life in general, they will inspire students to stay away from some of those negative influences in our society. So, gosh, broad answer. Or broad question, broad answer, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been a teacher for 25 years, and I'm still a teacher now. I'm an art science teacher. The things that save our kids are the routines we have in place. We all saw that in the earthquake. You set off a fire drill, you can empty 2,000 kids out in 90 seconds. We have taught our kids how to respond. In addition, we of course, the teachers are in the classroom. That's where we learn who people's friends are. I remember a parent once saying, "You know my kids' friends more than I do." And you get in a situation where often you hear things and you need to make the call on when to alert parents and when to try to get involved with the kid, as far as hearing about parties and drug use and everything. I think having the resource officers in our school has been fantastic. I think the relationships have really helped our kids understand that police officers are good people and they're helpful people. In addition, we have to also remember our custodial staff. I think that our custodial staff, we assume that they just clean. They keep that place safe. They make sure those doors are locked all day. They keep them locked at night. They're the ones that make sure the playgrounds are safe. They're the ones that go out every day and look at the playgrounds. They're the ones that report injuries or issues with equipment. And right now the school district does have a policy of only having one door that opens, and in many schools, of course, you have to ring to get in. So I think that we learn quickly and we do quickly. I think there's a lot more on the staff that I'm not sure everyone understands. I'll never forget the meeting after Columbine when we had someone come to the teachers and teach us how to zigzag in case we're being shot at. And now we're a little numb to that, but I'll tell you that was an experience when you think about it. So I think we're doing what we can. I think that we have to continue to fight our opiate crisis and to find the root of where these drugs are coming from. And we have to be vigilant, but we also need to know, and I will say this once, the smaller our classes, the more contact our kids have with adults. The more contact our kids have with adults, the better off they are at making good choices.
Mr. Merrifield?
Yeah, I'd like to see more risk counselors. Too often there's some very troubled kids with very, very adult, unfortunately when it comes up to adult problems that they shouldn't have to be dealing with. And since we don't really, the schools aren't really set up with these kind of counselors for lack of funding, whatever reason, a lot of this gets put on the teachers. And teachers already have enough to do, and they shouldn't be asked to intervene so much on a subject they're not really trained with. Unfortunately, there are kids out there who are dealing with things at home or with their friends that comes down to their physical safety, and I would just like to see somebody a little more equipped to handle it other than teachers. So that's what I would think.
Thank you, Mr. Starr.
It's a cognizant question of today for sure with all the challenges that we're facing. In the short term, of course, you have 2 schools that have been condemned. The kids are out of them. The lives are impacted, not just the children, but the families. And so the short-term leadership is going to be, what do we do with grooming? What do we do with Eagle River Elementary School? And that's got to be a dialogue that happens pretty quick. You may have already addressed it at the joint school board meeting that you had last week, or maybe it was pre-earthquake, I don't know. But that's a resource that makes sense to do, is let those leaders also engage in conversation. The Assembly approves their budget, and will have first quarter budget amendments that come in just before April, before the seat expires. So those conversations are helpful. I think encouraging, such as we did when the resource school officers came into play, was encourage them to also hit the middle schools and elementary schools. And then lastly, I think also with the safety and sort of the inference that the building community and the building inspectors can only do so much, is perhaps even engage in the short term some of the fire crews to go out and be a presence during the school day and just show that sense of caring, and as well as letting look for things that may crop up with new safety issues. Egress, as it was mentioned here, just the obvious that maybe something to a fire safety officer would be appropriate for our kids.
Mr. Miller?
I think what's been real effective, I guess, in our family is communications. You know, I have a daughter who's in high school now, and I talk to her every day, ask her how her day went. And, you know, she's very honest and very open, and if she has a concern or she's worried at school, she tells me. And, you know, I engage with her friends. And if I believe it's an issue and something we can't talk through and work out, then I typically end up at the school talking to her teacher or the resource officer. If it makes her feel unsafe, it makes me feel unsafe. And if she's unsafe, typically her friends feel unsafe. And I feel like the only way you can solve those is through communication. Most of the time, it's just not understanding and not knowing something. And, you know, if you can get everybody to communicate a little better, 95% of the concerns or the safety concerns she has can be resolved.
Sterner.
Well, I think it's a practical matter. The school board has on the bond issue looking to increase security of front doors. And that's important. My wife's an elementary teacher in Elkton Grove. And restraining orders and parents and such are a big issue. And that's one minor aspect. I'm going to echo what's been said by a number of people, including Ms. Wemhoff, that ultimately it's as parents, coaches, and community engaging with our children is the most important part. And that's something that all the society has to work on. But I think the biggest issue is something that's not just in the schools. It's all of Anchorage and Eagle River, especially in the quote downtown Eagle River area. Anything that's not strapped down is being stolen. The elementary schools have had vandalism issues. My daughter went to Eagle River High School, my son's at Chugiak. Luckily, they've avoided problems, although my son, one of his friends very recently had his car stolen out of the Chugiak parking lot while they were skiing on the trails after school. And that comes down to the opiate fentanyl issue. We, as a community, have to get a handle on that. That's multifaceted. It's police, it's education, it's treatment, it's a lot of aspects. But that's nationwide, and it's statewide, and it's community-wide, and it is one of those primary problems in the schools.
Thank you.
Safety in our schools is a top priority for me. But I think a lot of these concerns aren't coming from the outside, they're coming from the inside. You know, we watch the paper, we watch TV, we read the paper, and we're hearing about all these internal threats. So I'd echo other voices I've heard tonight about, I think classroom sizes has a huge effect, and also the amount of counselor ratios also has a great effect. But ultimately, that's not the Assembly's decision to make, it's the school board's, and it's the Assembly's to approve the budget. So I would defer to the school board, since that is their point of expertise.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. On the issue of safety, I'm a mom, I have a daughter, and safety is a huge issue for me. We have our feet in both camps. We homeschool, and my daughter was also part-time in public school. And in particular, in 5th grade, there was a policy that came down, and this is more ASD, the issue of if a boy felt like a girl, that he could go into her bathroom with her. And when I brought that up to the principal, so where are my daughter's rights and her safety? Does she have any rights? And the principal basically said, well, yes and no. And the conversation went downhill from there. So the issue of women and young girls feeling safe in schools is huge with me. Also drugs. As a physical therapist, patients reveal a lot of information to me to relieve stress, and a big issue is drugs and marijuana, particularly edible marijuana. These edibles, they look like the number 2 yellow pencils. They're actually pot, and they're chewing on their pencils at 4th grade, 10 years old, looking like they're chewing on a pencil. They're actually getting stoned. Drugs are a huge issue for me, and I like what you're saying about having more adults in the schools, but my experience with public school was they just didn't really want adults there, drop your kids off and leave. that was my experience. So I think having more adult volunteers, safety, or like the metal detectors, I'm open to that, and even open to having a dialogue of concealed carry with those professionals in the school that choose to carry. They don't have to, but at least have a dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. We started with you, right? I almost lost track, but excellent. I thought we had allocated too much time, 2 hours, but we're here at 3:30. I have 4 people in the queue, so you're welcome to give us as long as you feel is necessary, up to the 3 minutes, but if you can be brief, we'd appreciate it. Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank Mrs. Rossi. That turned out to be a really good, illuminating question. So, thank you. Ms. Hedden, you had said something before that caught my ear, and I think everyone can answer this question. You said that downtown Eagle River had changed for the better, but also largely for the worse. I'd like you to explain what you mean by Eagle River downtown changing for the worse. And for everyone else, I'd like to ask you, do you think downtown Eagle River has changed for the better or the worse, and why? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I work, if you're familiar, there's a coffee shop named Jitters, which is sort of the general central area, and my office is just down from there. And in 2002, when I started, I'm a sole proprietor, so I'm a one-woman shop. I'm in there by myself. And when I initially started, I never felt threatened. My safety always I felt fine. My husband was hesitant to have me start my own practice for that particular issue. So, and I would say it would probably be around 2012, 2013, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, kind of started experiencing economic downturn in Anchorage. That I really started feeling uncomfortable. So if I'm with a patient or not, I keep that door locked at all times. I've had too many incidences that I thank God that door was locked. So more of an issue of safety in the downtown Eagle River area. Thank you.
Did anyone else want to address that question? How about instead of doing anybody that like to, we'll go down the way, but you don't have to. So, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I spent the last 20 years in Eagle River, and I think there's 2 Eagle Rivers. The downtown in the daytime, Bear Paw Festival, I have 4 boys, and we go down there and hang out, walk around in the parade, and it just felt like an idyllic American small town. But what I've noticed in the last maybe 5 years is what you're not seeing, which is the crime and the stealing of cars every single night. And a friend of mine, Cliff Cook, has started a Eagle River Community Patrol, and that is the way to solve these kind of things, is to get people off their couches, go get in a truck with a buddy and just drive around and make sure that people are where they're supposed to be and not walking up your driveway and taking pictures of your house to scope it out for later. But the downtown itself, I think in the daytime, it's a really great place to be.
Going this way, yeah, Mr. Sheath.
So as I was out knocking doors during the Senate run, the thing that was most on everybody's lips as far as concerns go is the crimes, the break-in of house property, burglary. I know that the municipality's taken some steps. We now have 4 officers patrolling at any given time in Eagle River, and I think that was a great step in the right direction. And I think that's the overarching crime problem in our state. It's statewide. It's not just centralized in Eagle River or Anchorage. It's something that needs to be addressed at the state level, and then also down at the municipality. Of course, we need to do what we can to help ensure that. I know Eagle River lost. Let me jump tracks a little bit. We lost our employment center some years back. And I think, sorry.
Please be quiet.
Yeah. And that I think was a big loss to our community. I think crime, one of the key feeders of crime is unemployment, and it's when people do not have the resources to support themselves, they go out and commit crimes to. Now, of course, you always have people that just want to commit crime, but I believe overarching, those are people go into crime and these burglaries because they really have no other recourse, and it's our duty to ensure that we do everything that we can to make sure that employment opportunities exist for the citizens, so that then we can, with a clear conscience, bring the hammer down on those who do commit crimes after that.
Thank you. And I think before you get there, I didn't mean to miss you, ma'am. Did you want to respond to that? Ms. Gibbons here.
Thank you so much. I've been in Eagle River for quite some time, and I absolutely love Eagle River. And upon my opportunity to join the Eagle River Community Council, it's been so interesting because your insight is broadened and you get to hear from people that you wouldn't normally hear from. So I just want to speak to this a little bit. So we have students from Chubiak High School that will come and sit with us and talk, and on occasions they will share. And so the things that they share just blow my mind. They're just heart-wrenching. But we also have folks that come in from the community that share too. But I want to just share a little bit of what I've heard from community councils that happen in Eagle River. So we have prostitution. We have a bicycle shop that sells drugs, and all these are things that I didn't know about. There's a park that occasionally, and I think more often, has drugs, and there are needles that teenagers have found in the park, and they're sharing this at these community council meetings. I think the low density housing that we experience in Eagle River has been beneficial, but for some reason it seemed like the influx of homeless people have transitioned to Eagle River. I want to mention, you mentioned Cliff Cook. He is part of the Eagle River Community Council, and I think when he started doing that, I want to thank God because someone here or some committee agreed to help him get financial help or assistance to have more people help him. So I know that Eagle River has been targeted, and there are, from what I understand, gangs that come to steal cars, and so the crime has really maximized since I've been there. But also, I would like to say that since we've had more officers, I believe that there has been a little bit of a decrease because people have been able to call and actually have someone, a police officer, come out and check and see what's going on. So that's mine. It's going right over.
Thank you. Dunbar, your question was in regards to the effect in Eagle River, or?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I wasn't thinking about crime so much, but it's great you answered that way. You said that Eagle River downtown had changed in a way that you didn't like. I thought maybe you were thinking about the lands, a zoning issue, or maybe there was something to do with the way it was structured. You were talking about over 20 years. And so I was a little surprised that you went completely down the crime route. You could speak to that, or you could speak to the way Eagle River downtown is structured, either way.
It hasn't changed a lot in the structure of it. But it is the community center of it. You know, Eagle River, probably a big showcase is the Bear Claw Festival, one of the most powerful, biggest parades, and it's a showcase for what Eagle River is. We put this together as a community. It is true that over the years, I was walking too in the district, and we find a lot of unsavory elements that are coming in and causing problems. So yes, our public safety has diminished. That's the only comment I have.
Yeah, Ms. Webhoff.
Great. You know, the Eagle River has changed in several ways. We're also suffering a little bit from the earthquake. You know, if you drive down the main road, you'll see McDonald's, and it's always busy. And right now it says closed, and it's not been able to open. There's a mall. I don't remember the name of the mall, but Mike's Music is in it. You guys know which one. They were doing okay until the earthquake Sunday, and they lost part of the roof. And so there's a lot of issues that Eagle River's having. Of course, there was a meeting last night. The mayor and several utilities facilities and offices came out to answer questions for them. But I think that we do have our share of trying to pull that together. I think the increased police presence is good. Birchwood has had a great community patrol for a while now, and they started out with a grant to get it. And it's kind of nice because then Birchwood can send out messages. Of course, started out just being, hey, there's a mama and 3 bear cubs coming down the road, but Now it is, there's this person that's been stealing and he's been arrested and let out and arrested and let out and arrested and let out. And so there's more in that case. I think Eagle River gets more of I don't like to use that word, people who might just be hanging around, and then you might get in Shubiak because it's easier to be in that core center. But Eagle River in general has a really spirited group of people. I think it's a real community. When Shubiak High School was the only high school, it was the high school. You know, you just, hey, it's out at the high school. People gathered there. The swimming pool was a community swimming pool. The activities out there. But we still have the same issues. Our parks that used to be sweet and safe, it'd be nice. Now we have parks groups asking to have cameras so they can identify the people who are vandalizing them or leaving needles. And I think that's happening all over. But Eagle River is a community that takes pride in being who they are. And I think that pride allows them to come together and kind of solve their own problems. But it is sad to go through town and see so many businesses that are still closed up because of the earthquake.
Yeah, I think Senator Dyson gets most of his caloric intake from that Eagle River McDonald's. So we're all worried about him here. And I just wanted, while we're on you, or finishing up, you are quite right. You sent me the reference, and the prohibition on serving is a member of the Assembly shall not hold any other compensated municipal office. And the prohibition is in 2830.050 of the city ordinances. But it says, except as provided by state law, employment by the Anchorage School District is not municipal employment prohibited by this section. So we stand corrected. Did anyone else want to address that? Yeah, Mr.
I didn't. Downtown Eagle River is changing. We're getting a lot more people. We're getting a lot more business. On the negative side, there is an uptick on property crime. From what I've seen in the figures, it's not violent crime, but a lot of that. And that's, as we've discussed, is a city, statewide, nationwide problem. I think downtown Eagle River is developing in a positive way. It wasn't that long ago, the Eagle River Town Center was basically an abandoned old mall. And right now that's an important issue because earthquake damage again. We need to get that up and running. That's our library, that's our police substation. As the Alaska Club, which quite frankly is becoming a little bit of a community center in Eagle River. That's where a lot of kids go after school weekends, and adults too get together there. The east side of the Old Glen Highway, that whole stretch there, we still got parking issues from Jitters and Brown Jug on to Eagle River Loop Road. We got to keep working on that. But I see positive in the time I've been in Eagle River. A lot of older, more decrepit businesses have been polished up, shined up. We've got new buildings. It's going in a positive direction.
Thank you, sir. At any point that you want to break in, Mr. Merrifield, just let me know.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, as with any community, yes, it's going to change. There's going to be good and bad points. I myself have only been in the community for 5 years, but even in a short amount of time, I've had my car broken into 3 different times right in front of my house. But I think it does speak to the strength of character of our community that you have 12 individuals willing to step up and try and fix things, even though it's a short-term position. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think that got us through. So, Senator Dyson, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. This is not a trick question, but it is an important one. It's temptation to always say, well, I'm going to do exactly what my constituents want. And it's very difficult to figure out. It's often the loudest person or a populist issue. I'd like each of you to tell me the circumstances under which you would not vote that which seems to be popular with your constituents.
We can start. Well, we'll start with Mr. Merrifield, so we don't neglect you.
So basically, what circumstance would I vote against my constituents' wishes is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Apparent wish system.
Apparent wishes, okay. Well, this is hypothetical. I could possibly a fiscal situation where the numbers work out to favor the community in the end, even if the community doesn't see it up front. That's about the most hypothetical response I can give you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Yeah.
Well, from actual practice, most of the folks in Eagle River that I spoke with early on didn't want Walmart. It was one where I had to override them, and then I had to do it again for the liquor store module that went into play. But I think if you do your homework and you do it right, liquor store would pull back, for example, the advertising, no curbside advertising, nothing external from the stores, not an entrance from the store in that regard. So, the history of looking at the issues, and it is challenging. You can't please them all by any means, but I can give you examples where I am sitting up there just having to say this is best in the long run for the greater good. And so I have a history of balancing it.
That was about 40 seconds, and we are kind of in a lightning round. So if you could hold it under a minute on these, we'll keep going. But if we can have them brief, thank you.
I guess one of the instances I could think of is probably something more along the financial. Nobody likes new taxes. Nobody likes to raise costs. I hope I did my homework, understood it, knew what the long-term goals were, and then, I would vote my conscience, what I thought was best, and then I would go back to my constituents and provide them as much information as I could to make sure they understood why.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Einhorn.
I think our constituents want transparency, and I think I would own any vote I made. Where I would vote against the constituents as far as who is allowed would be in a situation, and I think this affects all of our country right now. We need a compromise sometimes. Sometimes you might not like your constituents don't want a big issue, but if you can compromise, you can tailor off some of those corners to make it a little bit more palatable. And I think the other point where it might be is often the public gets caught on short-term solutions to long-term problems, and that's where you've got to step up as a leader and say, hey, we need to go this way because 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this is what we really need.
Thank you, Mr. Cruikshank.
I believe education is one of the utmost important things to me, and I understand the constituents of my district. We usually are against the form of taxes, but I would stand strong with supporting a school board budget that supports our children.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe in dialogue, I believe in discussion, but I don't believe in compromising if it compromises my convictions and values. Thank you.
Mr. Webb.
You stole some of my thunder. We're not a democracy, we're a republic, so there's a piece of that where when you're elected, not necessarily appointed, but when you're elected, that you have been vetted by the majority of the people for what you have stated as your beliefs and your fiscal ideology. And I'm not saying that means Daddy knows best now, so be quiet and don't give me any feedback. I think we, as a people, especially now in the internet age, can get very short-sighted on, I want this now, I want this benefit now, I want help or I want a program, but not realizing that they're going to get crushed in taxes for the next 20 years and their kids as well. So I think along those lines I would disagree if the majority, and I hope they wouldn't, would want something that's going to really hurt them financially for a long time.
Thank you. Ms. Gibbs.
I believe I would feel an overwhelming need to vote differently as it relates to health and safety and integrity, especially with the lack of awareness on the constituents' part. I would feel that I would vote for what's healthy and what's safe and what as it regards to integrity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dyson. That was a good question. I remember having that conversation with Craig Campbell. Same question years and years ago. And I'm representing the people in my community. So what their concerns are, their wishes are primary. To hear and understand and synthesize and vote accordingly. That would be for me. To go against it would be, I mean, in effect, actually though, there's always 50-50 or 45-55. There's a lot of people, you can find people who would disagree, and you have to pick one. So that it was based upon my conscience, my moral values, the family, protecting my family. I would think about those things in regards to the people that I represent. And also, I think that's some of the things where I'd be strongly committed to.
Thank you, sir.
If any item was unethical, immoral, unjust to any particular group in the community, or harmful over a long term, then I would not support it under any circumstances. I'm running to take care of my community. I'm not running to cater to a law.
Yeah, sometimes I think the loudest voices aren't always the majority of voices. They're just loud. And I've had my turn being loud too, and I'm sure I wasn't the majority in that sense. But I do think that with this body does help govern an entire municipality that is large and incredibly diverse with different needs. And there are times that you have to look at that. I think the times that I might, I will tell you that I don't think I'd ever vote if something bothered me enough that I might be voting against what I think a large group of constituents, or even a section of constituents, maybe the people in the Klutna, and it's an issue that would impact them. I think it would be my responsibility as their assemblywoman to visit with them and understand that, because you can add amendments, you can help work things out, and I don't think that they should be blindsided. However, I'm also going to say I would certainly never vote for anything that I thought would harm a group of people, but because that is all protected under the law, that we have so many laws that protect things, as long as we don't vote against our laws, then we should be pretty good there. But that's it. Oh, I'm sorry, it's minutes, not 3, huh?
I'm trying to keep it to it, but you were close, very close. We have 3 other people in line. We're getting very close to the end. In my same lightning round, I'd just like to understand whether anyone who's applying has been paid in the last year to lobby or consult on an issue that has come before us, that is before the assembly or was before the assembly this year.
Raise your hand, quick.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, not as a lobbyist, though. I draw the line between lobbying as promoting a position around legislation, and really all I've been doing is sort of promoting a topic, a nuance in that regard. I pull it way short when it comes to trying to influence you guys.
You were paid as a consultant more than a lobbyist?
I'm not paid as a lobbyist. I'm paid as a consultant. My development company has always done consulting work for that. I've had a development company for 20 years. I have diverse clients, and oftentimes I'll engage subcontractors, perhaps that are lobbyists, Dow engineers, for example. I hire them from time to time. So it's full disclosure for some of those that know me. I pretty much speak clearly at the night of the topics that would be in front of us. So there's plenty of times I've had to conflict out in my career, probably 15 or 20 at least.
And were you paid on the Eklutna project?
Not necessarily myself, but I had to pay my subs that I work for, both the legal as well as the engineering firms.
Thanks. Yeah, Mr. Weddleton.
Okay, so to ask a question, given lack of time, how about 15 seconds as a ceiling? What is the most pressing issue in Anchorage right now?
This is a true lightning
I'm not
round.
asking for your solution, just what is the issue?
We'll go back to just going this way then, Mr. Sheets.
Budget.
Homelessness and public transportation.
Mr. Merrifield.
Preventing a worse recession.
Mr. Starr.
Crime. Homelessness. I think the opioid crisis and immediately earthquake repairs.
Crime.
Taxes and safety.
Earthquake infrastructure repairs, and then crime.
Earthquake and
Thank you.
The opioid crisis is huge, and also the budget is a big concern.
You guys actually did that. It almost might disqualify you if you're that brief. Mr. Constant.
Thank you. Mine, I'm hoping for 30 seconds or less. It's a challenging question, though. In a lot of ways, the downtown district and Eagle River share similarities. In your understanding, what are those similarities and how do we work together? 30 seconds.
Sorry, we'll start you again.
Between the downtown and your district.
I would say our homeless population is growing both. It's coming from the downtown Anchorage area, moving up into the Eagle River now as well. And I think addressing that, I think one size does not fit all. There's been a couple different approaches proposed from the homeless village. I believe it was the Veterans Village. I thought that was a great idea. Moving on to people, some of the homeless, it's a mental health capacity item issue, and I think addressing it from that standpoint, some homeless people have incomes through VA benefits or whatnot. They need help, and I guess.
Thank you.
I think some of the good concepts is that businesses come together in both Anchorage downtown and the Eagle River downtown. Chamber of Commerce's work together to do things to beautify and take care of the areas. I do think that both areas, because they are the areas that have the stores and the liquor stores and the parks and the places to sit and the places to get warm and the restaurants to run in for a cup of coffee, it does draw people who are homeless. And of course that is also where I'm not sure that all the crime is like right downtown, it's all around. And they go through downtown to get there. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Mr. Merrifield.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm hearing the answers. I couldn't quite understand the question.
What are the similarities between the downtown and the district out there?
Similarities between the downtown district and Eagle River and where?
Eagle River to the downtown district, to the downtown Anchorage district.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Similarities? I would say I notice a lot of locally owned businesses as opposed to downtown, say in the lower 48, where it's a lot of corporation-owned businesses. I think people, I know crime has been a problem, but I think people look out for each other a little bit more in the two districts. That's all I got.
Okay, Mr. Starr.
I think we both have visions to be walkable communities where we're interactive with people that aren't necessarily transportation driven, want to get out and walk. We're similar in a way, we're both bisected by busy roads. We've got that large corridor of DOT controlled roads that goes right down through, and we also have a parking issue that we need to address.
Very succinct. Mr. Miller.
I would agree. We have two very tight-knit business communities who are working together. Trying to get people to come and shop and spend time there. And I also believe that's being affected negatively by a homeless population. And the folks who come in, I believe, to prey on them, right? And then they bring the crime in with them. I'm not positive it's the homeless that are causing the crime, but the people who are preying on them that are actually doing it.
Thanks.
Both are bisected, both have large parks and are the center of transit to the extent we have transit in Eagle River. But I think both Anchorage and downtown Eagle River, out especially in the residential, is getting higher density, and in the business district dealing with becoming more pedestrian friendly. So they're very similar in those ways.
Thank you, Mr. Earnhardt. Mr. Cruikshank.
Well, other than both areas having beautiful flower beds, I would say that I work at the Nesbitt Courthouse, and I get a first-hand, I work at Nesbitt Courthouse, and I get a first-hand look at the crime, the drugs, the individuals that are occupying our area down there. And at the same time, living in Birchwood, Eagle River, it's been sad to see the individuals that have been arising that haven't been around for many years. So I would say crime is becoming drugs specifically are becoming a common denominator in both areas.
Thanks.
I'd like to see more legislation and more work towards the small business owner and making it more business friendly for small businesses and not so much corporate entities. One of the patients works for the city pretty high up, and she was saying, I just can't help but wonder, does the city not want small businesses to do well? So I would like to see more push for small businesses.
Mr. Williams?
What do we have that's similar? Traffic. It's 4 o'clock right now, and it's already on my mind, and it goes all the way out from the bridges into downtown Anchorage. And I'll tell you honestly, on the weekends, my neighbors and I, we talk about making a trip into town to do some shopping or get something done, and it's just overwhelming the resistance to get downtown and get into traffic. And I don't know if the Assembly has any way to fix that. Probably not, but it is something that we do share in common.
Thank you, Ms. Cooter.
The commonalities that I observe is that both downtown and Eagle River downtown, they're both beautiful, they're both breathtaking, they're both lively. We have a lot of community participation, and that's what I really love about Eagle River downtown, because you can go for a walk, take your dog for a walk. And the same in Anchorage. I love going downtown in Anchorage and pretending like I'm a tourist, because it's lively and it's festive, and I find the same thing in Eagle River.
Thank you.
Good question. I think there is the similarity in regards to the cooperative nature of the businesses. I'm working downtown now, and I have been participating with Visit Anchorage and Downtown Anchorage, and I think those businesses really thrive together, helping each other to solve their issues, and that's what I've experienced in Eagle River quite a bit too. The businesses work together to make it a good community.
Thank you. And we are just about out of town. You guys got to kind of bring time. And Mr. Cheney has a quick question. I'll start with you, Mr.
Quick
Harnett.
question. Would you raise your hand if you know you're going to be representing Muldoon too?
Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
Because this area represents part of Muldoon. I want to make sure you only talk about your Virginia, but you do represent part of Muldoon. I want you to understand that if you're appointed. Thank you.
Any other Assembly member questions? We're at 4:03.
You mean like from the public?
No, I mean like from the Assembly. Good. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you pointed out, Eagle River suffered tremendously from the earthquake and is still in the process of evaluating a new building. So, yes or no question, would you be open to stricter building codes in your area?
Well, you want to just have them raise their hands?
Yeah, sure, that's that.
Raise their hands if you would support stricter building codes.
Should it prove to be needed for engineering assessments and so on?
Mr. Merrifield, are you raising your hand?
Would I be open to it? Well, as you said, it would need to be proven that the current building code would cause the enormous amount of destruction that was out there. It could have just been, we don't know, it could have been the relative location of the actual earthquake itself, or it could have been simply adjusting how we do the foundation and fill. Would I be open to it? Yes, but I need to see some hard evidence first. I mean, for the reason being simply because lives could have been lost. Thank God there weren't.
Yes or no question.
And that's the answer to a hand-raising question. Thank you. But we're out of time. It's my intention to not take public testimony either now or on our 4 o'clock session. I believe it's a decision we're making after talking to the public. Does any member of the Assembly want to object to that or raise any? Good, then I'll gavel out. And we'll come back in for the 4 o'clock session shortly. I have about 5 minutes.